Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hararian Network, where we are connecting people through networking. And as you can tell down below on the title for this video, it's continuing off of the story based on the last video, The Truth About CompTIA Certifications. So, this one, now you're thinking, okay, from the last one, right? Well, you said based on CompTIA, you should not get the certifications because they'll lead to entry-level jobs, and pretty much you do not want to get there. But you're thinking, yes, it's entry, I should get there, right? But then no, there's other ways of doing things. And this video is going to break some things down with that. And that's the one you've been looking for. So which certification should you go for as your first certification in IT? And the answer to that is CCNA, all right? And for anybody that has took the CCNA, well, I'm going to even break down for whoever failed it, if you failed it, and why you did. Not based on me thinking, I'm a know it all. No, I'm going to say it based on my own experience taking the CCNA as well, too, because myself also failed the CCNA for the first time. And now let me just continue based on that story. So I left off when I said I failed Security Plus, right? So as you can tell based on this video, the next certification I ended up going for and the exam I wanted to get ready for was CCNA, right? And now this was around October 2019. There we go, 2019, right? And then I failed it, right? So now I just started to prepare for CCNA. So during that time, I was just studying, going through as much as I could. For about 2 months, winter break came in. So I was studying for CCNA and I was working, right? And my work was closed for the winter break. So during that winter break, I ended up going to Philadelphia for a conference. It's a conference that I go to, and it happens every year. And this was my second time going there. And this time when I went there, it didn't feel like as how I was during my first time, as in like my energy and everything like that, because I felt so uneased, and it had to do regarding this. It had to do with the CCNA. There we go. It had to do with the CCNA, and based on that, what happened was that because I went through who is now my mentor, my coach's videos, a few of his videos, and I realized the truth. And I realized the truth as to a friend of my mom's that knows some things of IT, and he's been studying for certifications and things like that. Mentioned as well, like, why is he going through that? Why did he do that? I was naive and unaware, but now I realize based on watching these videos from my coach, my mentor. But at that time, he wasn't my coach and my mentor because I was figuring things out, right? So that had to do with based on you should get your CCNA as your first certification, just like this, but I'm just saying it from my point of view. And regarding not going for CompTIA certifications, right? And then the other one was because I was getting ready for the old CCNA. He mentioned to go for the old CCNA before the new one came in. And I wanted to take my time with this exam, like, because I wasn't getting used to how to go through exams and study and all that kind of stuff and learning. But I was thinking I might need a lot of time for this one since this one's going to be a lot harder than all the other ones since it's not entry level certification. So when I heard that, I was like, shoot, okay, now I have to try to get this certification before the new one comes out. I'm like, will I be able to make it? I had all these doubts, all these challenges going on in my mind, right? That was holding me back. But I just said, you know what? Let me focus and do whatever I can to knock this exam out. So I started studying when I came back from my winter break during that time because that time I wasn't present enough because of CCNA was just so on my mind and I was getting anxious. I was having some anxiety and I was just feeling a lot of unease like I mentioned. So when I came back, I just did whatever I could to study as much as possible. I bought courses. I went through labs. I went through Packet Tracer. So to get the hang of these things, right? To prepare for the exam. And I went through David Bomble's videos, which were great videos. And the thing was that when I was going through the information, I thought, okay, maybe I'll be all right, but at the same time, part of me was not sure. So after all of that, then it was until February, mid-February, because it expires at February 23rd. So I booked it for mid-February. And when I went for the exam, I thought, okay, let's see how it is. When I saw the questions, the lab scenarios, it caught me off guard because there was like steps and it took time, right? And then on top of that, with Cisco exams, what caught me off guard too is that I cannot go back to questions. So whatever question I'm on, I have to answer it right there and then. And if I answer and I move on, I can't go back to it. So I was like, shoot, I was really nervous. All those kind of things, those feelings, everything like that. And going through labs, multiple choice, multiple response, multiple choice questions, some of them were challenging. And when I finished the exam, I ended up failing. So yeah, it hit me hard that I failed. And I was like, shoot. But I couldn't let those emotions get to me like what happened to me when I failed Security Plus, in this case of me failing CCNA, because I only had about another week to prepare again to get the CCNA before the new one comes out. And I remember that when I booked the CCNA, that there was two ways of doing it. You can do it two separate exams to get it, or one. But I didn't have time to do two separate exams, so I ended up doing just one, right? And now what happened was that thanks to a connection I had with a great friend I met at the conference that's in IT and that has CCNA and has been through it, based on what he told me about something that will help me based on my learning for it, he showed me something called Boson Exam Simulator. And I was like, what is this? Like, I have never heard of this. And it was quite expensive, but I didn't mind paying money for it because I just thought to myself, I just had to get the CCNA before the new one came out, right? And I went through it. And when I went through it, I was just amazed. I was like, wow, like the types of questions they had, everything I went through, it felt like as if I was doing the real CCNA exam. The type of style lab questions, the multiple choice, multiple response, the drag and drop, all of that. So then after going through that, I just used that as my only source of studying at that time because I went through other sources. So then I went through that for about a week. I just studied as much as I could and went over some lab information and things like that too. Because the labs was the one I was trying to make sure, okay, I could be on point with, especially. Even obviously like the multiple choice and other questions for sure, but more focus on lab related questions, definitely. And now it was around like a couple days before the last day of the old CCNA, I'm going for the exam. And when I went for it this time, I was like, okay, it was not different from my first time. The types of questions, everything like that. Even some questions I actually really remembered from the first time going for it. So I was like, okay, now this time, hopefully I feel like I should be able to pass it. So then I ended up going through it. And now this time, I actually passed the exam. I was so excited because this was the hardest exam up to this point throughout my IT journey, trying to get certifications, to help get my foot in the door, right? Well, at that time, I wasn't thinking it's just to get my foot in the door. I thought to myself, if I get a certification, I'll get a great job. But in all reality, and I'll save this for another video, is that the certifications is only a small part of you landing a good IT position. Okay. Well, now, aside from all that, what happened after through all that was just that I was trying to find out now how would I be able to basically get into a good position. And I explained it briefly in my introduction video about what happened to me throughout that process, but that's not for this video. And now I want to just get to this point. So basically, I want to break down as to why I failed and the reasons that I've noticed. And it all comes down to one thing mainly. It was how I was learning the information. And what do I mean by that? Well, first and foremost, my first source of information I went through for CCNA was the actual book. And that book has about like 800 pages or even like 1,000. It was so many pages. And I literally like read through every single page. You should never do that. because that takes so much time, number one. Number two, there's just going to be so much information, and you're going to try to cram so much information in your head, put a lot of information in your head. And what that's going to lead to is that you're going to have information overload. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to be all over the place. You're going to just be tired of it, right? And you do not want to do that when it comes to studying. And that's something important, right? Now, another thing also is that when I was going through videos, I never went through something again if I didn't really understood it. That's another problem. And that's something that held me back for sure too. And another thing is that when it came to labs, I was not doing labs in the sense of, okay, this is happening in a real life scenario. Like I'm actually in a job and this issue happened and I have to resolve it. My manager asked me to basically do this, 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 that. And you break down those things. And then you see a bigger picture and you actually visualize it and then you go through it. It may take more longer, but on the long term and in the bigger picture of it all, when the information you want to recall it and you need it the most, it will come out at the right time because of those situations that you've put yourself into. And that's really important. And then now another thing I was going to say was based on all of that, I also tried to like force and pressure myself. Oh, I have to memorize this. I have to memorize that. I have to memorize the exact commands. But as we know, when it comes to Cisco devices, for anybody that's been into any Cisco devices remotely connected to it, whether it's a switch, whether it's a router, that when you type the commands, you can actually find out the next step by mentioning a question mark. And if you type words, you don't have to even complete it. You can press tab and it will complete the rest of the sentence or the command you're trying to put out, right? The output of the command. So those are things that I have to keep in mind. Like, why am I putting myself into all this kind of pressure and like feel like I have to know these specific things when there's things that can help assist me and let things flow for me to at least get the information and for me to go through things seamlessly. And that was really important. And that was something I learned a lot, especially when I went through a coaching program with my coach and my mentor, right? Because even after getting my CCNA, some of the topics I still forgot some things. But then when I understood how I was able to learn information, that's what basically helped for me to recall it and everything like that. And the reason as to why a lot of people fail is similar to the reasons I've mentioned. You try to force information in your head, thinking you have to know a lot, the way you're studying the information. The way you're studying information, you're studying it based off its theory. You're not studying it based off, okay, how am I going to apply this in a real scenario, in real life, on an actual job? Or based on if you're getting interviewed for it, you know, how can I put it in a way that I could provide value to show others that, I see the bigger picture based on what I've learned. And it's not just I learned theory. I know how to apply it. I know where it should be implemented. I know what to look into if there's problems, how I could troubleshoot it. All of these things are really pivotal because if you do not see it from that type of lens, it doesn't matter how much you know, you're never going to go far because the way it comes out and how you're going to present that, that's going to be important. So that's how you should learn information in a way that will help in that kind of way. Or else if you don't, then you're not going to go far and you're just going to have a lot of useless information. And you do not want that. You want to have information that you can make use of because in all reality, whatever you learn in certifications and exams, all the content, you're probably only going to use like 20% of it in the workplace, whereas a lot of it you're not going to even use in the workplace. So just keep that in mind as well too. And that's what I wanted to tell you based on all of this. So the conclusion for today's video was just breaking down what to look for when it comes to the right certification to get, right? The one you've been looking for, actually, I should say. Then, second component was regarding for anybody that has taken that exam, and now we know that's the CCNA, is that did you fail it? And if so, let me tell you why. And I told you why based on my own personal perspective. But let's say even if you did everything right and you learned things right and you still failed? Well, at the end of the day, what you can take from this too as well is that even if you failed, I don't mean to sound cliche, I know you hear it a lot, but it all matters about what you do after you fail. You just give up, or you get up and you get going and you say, you know what, let me redeem myself, just like a lot of great successful people do whenever they failed. And they just kept trying and trying and trying and trying until they were able to get through and to get what they wanted to achieve, right? And that's what matters when it's all said and done. And the other thing I want to mention is that when it comes to why people failed, it's just because the way we learn information in IT is really wrong. And I'm going to leave that topic on a separate video and explain and elaborate based on that as well too, briefly about that. And honestly, for anybody that has watched my videos, my recent videos up to this point, and that has liked it and that subscribed to my channel, I appreciate the love, I appreciate the support, you know. And for anybody that watched this video, thumbs up if you liked it. If you want more content like this, for anyone new that has been watching this now, subscribe to the channel if you're interested and you want to see more of this kind of content. And I'm going to do some other things involved in this as well too, some lab type of videos, also some things regarding like questions, things like that, to kind of like get ourselves energized in a different way of learning and taking in this information, so then from there it can help in some sort of way. And that's all I wanted to tell you for today. And until the next video, take care.